Welcome everybody here to episode 2 of season 1 of the brand new daily show, To the Half. I'm your host, Matthew Long. Quick rundown of what we're going to get into today. I'm going to do a quick intro on the national championship game, which is on Monday. I will get more into it in depth on Monday's show. I'm just going to intro into it real quick. And then I'm going to go right into some of the big names that have declared for the NFL draft, including some that have just entered into the draft today. So, some big names coming in there. So we'll be looking forward to seeing who we will look for in the draft here in the next couple months and at the combine as well. In segment 2, I'm going to get into the NFL playoffs, briefly go over them and get into some of the movement that is being made in the NFL as far as firings, waivers, stuff like that. There are some teams that have been pretty active. This time of year that one thing a lot of people don't know is teams do, despite the team being in or not in the playoffs, a lot of teams will do tryouts and stuff and start preparing for some of those guys that may be in independent leagues, international leagues, and arena leagues and stuff like that, free agents. They'll bring them in for tryouts. The reason being behind that, because you still have time where you can get them into your facility, you can have them start working on team camaraderie. You can start having them work out together and stuff like that. So there's a few things that you can do this time of year that will really help out. So teams do hold tryouts and stuff like that this time of year for free agents and whatnot. But more so, I want to get into some of the stuff that's been happening as far as waivers and as far as coaches being fired or retained. And then in the final segment, I'll get into at least the first team all-pro list. If we have time left, then I will get into the second team. So some interesting choices there by the Associated Press. And again, I hold the all-pro list at a higher regard than I do Pro Bowl. I just think it's a bit more in-depth and more accurate of who the better players are, not just all-stars, but actually who the best players are that given season. So we'll get into that. All right, so to start off, of course, here in Tampa on Monday, we'll have the national title game played here in Raymond James Stadium. A lot of news outlets and stuff are starting to show up. I understand the teams are supposed to show up later today or some point today, if they have not already. And start preparing their walkthroughs and whatnot for the game on Monday. Now, it's going to be an interesting game. I do not doubt that. This is a rematch of last year. The ratings were terrible last year for the national title game. Just hoping that this is not a repeat. Hopefully college football fans do want to see this. ESPN and the ratings, and quite frankly, fans probably would have preferred overall to see Ohio State and Alabama play, because you got, a team from the Big Ten Conference, which has, receives the most TV money, has the largest TV audiences, and gives them skin in the game. And then having someone from the SEC like Alabama, who is a perennial team, a dynasty team, if you will, playing in or around the national championship, or as they call the playoffs, ever since the inception of the playoffs, Alabama has been in the playoffs, if not in the national title game. So it's going to be an interesting game because they're very well matched up, athlete for athlete, position for position. Clemson has the advantage on in the quarterback position, where Alabama will have more of the benefit at running back and may have a bit better defense. Defensive front, it's going to be interesting to see who has and holds that claim there. So two really good teams. You can't really knock them too much for anything. Alabama is coming in. Jalen Hurd is a true freshman quarterback. So on the biggest stage, how is he going to perform? Dabu's expecting that. Now, again, on yesterday's show, as we said, Lane Kiffin, the offensive coordinator, and Nick Saban in Alabama had made a mutual agreement. We're going to go ahead and assume that it is a mutual agreement, and he will not be there for the title game. He's going to focus on his work at Florida Atlantic University as the head coach, with his coach hiring the rest of his staff and recruiting players. Now, what does this do? Steve Sarkisian, who's also another former coach of USC. He's also was the last head coach for Washington. He's going to step in. He was an offensive analyst, so he didn't have any real deliberation, time, experience with Alabama in game planning while he was there. It's pretty much just some of the coaching while they were in practice, but has not had time with Hurts, with Bo Scarborough, with anybody really on the offense. So he hasn't had time to sit down and game plan. At this point in the game, what Kiffin had put in and what he did to rebuild isn't going to be too different from what he's going to know what he did. These two guys were both at USC together under the previous head coach. Blows my mind. So they were there together as quarterback coach and offensive coordinator, and they have similar minds. So I don't look to I don't look to see too much. Pete Carroll, sorry. I don't see too much change for them. He knows what Lane likes. He knows what he does. With only a short time to prepare, they're not going to throw anything different at these kids. He's not going to change up schemes and stuff like that. He's familiar with what they do because he's been there as an offensive analyst. So he knows the personnel. He knows the plays. He's familiar with this stuff. So it shouldn't be too much of a drop-off. We'll see what he does with play calling, how he changes it up. Now, there's been a lot of criticism on Lane Kiffin and thinking it was part of the reason why they parted ways with Alabama was that they only had 57 passing yards. Now, from my understanding from Lane Kiffin through reports that he has said that it was by design because that Washington's defense led in takeaways. So they wanted to focus on pounding the ball and running with Bo Scarborough and other complementary backs. So it's going to be interesting. So we'll get deeper into that as the game comes along. I know Dabu Sweeney is ready for this. Basically coming so close last year in Arizona, in Glendale, in the very stadium that they won 31-0 over Ohio State just the year before. They just marginally lost to Alabama. So, after they left that game, he came back ready to roll, ready to go back to that game, but wanting to know what they can do in big situations. Can the team live up to their talent, to their hype, to their expectations? So that's one thing that we're going to look at coming into the national title game, and I'll elaborate more on Monday's show. Monday's show will actually be, I'll be doing it from Gainesville. From Gainesville, Florida, is where Monday's show will be from. So just kind of a little bit of a heads up there. The background will look different, but you can always follow the show on Facebook. It's a brand new Facebook page, so follow it, share it with your friends. To the half, follow me at Matt Long Sports, and all the podcast versions of this show, as well as any other shows are at thechtonsports.com/listen, or just click on the listen link in the upper left-hand corner. So thank you to our syndicates. We got live video now over on YouTube. So you can see my ugly mug today. We had some technical issues with that yesterday. On Blog Talk Radio on the Go Long Media channel, and then over on Spreaker as well. Just search for the show name or at Matt Long Sports. You'll find it over there as well. We are on SoundCloud, so you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and here pretty soon, hopefully within the next 3 weeks, we'll be able to have our show on iHeartRadio and the TuneIn Radio app. So look for the podcast versions of the show there. Be ready to find us places, man. I'm so excited for this. So a quick rundown now of some of the players that have came out. Kind of pressed for time, so I'm just going to go over the ones that from today, that I've got updates on from today. Some of the big names that are entering into this NFL draft. Now, keep in mind here, I'm going to do more on these when we get closer to the draft. So I'm not trying to cram in a draft session here. Just as a quick report on who is coming out. Florida defensive tackle Caleb Brantley has declared for the draft. LSU All-American safety Jamal Adams will also be in the NFL draft this year. And then USF running back Marlon Mack declares for it. That's big. I like seeing him in there. He has one more year left. Him, Flowers, and Rodney, I believe, have each one more year left. They're juniors. They were like that tandem three here in Tampa for the Bulls this season. He rushed for 1,187 yards with 15 touchdowns this season. I think he'll fit well into some schemes. He has decent hands. He has okay speed, and he can run through some blocks. So we'll see what he does. He'll most likely be invited to the NFL Combine. They usually wait till after the national championship games and stuff like that. If not, some people have already been invited. The seniors I know have, for the most part. So we'll learn more on that as information is released. All right, I want to get on to our next topic of business, and that is the NFL playoffs. Now, the one team that we talked about yesterday was the Miami Dolphins. They've been making, they're in the playoffs, and I'm going to start off with them because they've been making some moves already this offseason. So it's going to be, even postseason. In the postseason, they're making moves. As you know, on yesterday's show, they decided that they're going to they will release Mario Williams after the playoffs, or whenever they're eliminated or win the Super Bowl. Whatever it comes, when their season's over, he's going to be released. Today, they actually, again, it looks like they're kind of cleaning house, so to speak, at the defensive end position, because they also decided that defensive end veteran James Jones, 36 tackles, 3.5 sacks over the course of 14 games, they decided to waive him as well. So on top of that, they're coupling with some injuries. I know Ryan Tannehill returned to practice in a limited capacity a day after being ruled out versus the Steelers. So again, that's probably going to be a game time decision. And the Dolphins, Landris Green, among three others, will be questionable for the game. For the Steelers, defensive tackle Ricardo Matthews and linebacker Anthony Chiquillo are ruled out. So we'll see how these injuries and roster moves and stuff will affect their team going forward. But it's nice to see that even though they're in the postseason, that they're still trying to do whatever they can. I think they feel like they're in the best position they've been in a little while to win at least one playoff game. The Steelers team is not a flunk. Ben Roethlisberger is probably easily one of the top quarterbacks